Did power ever taste like sin in dim-lit chambers? Could ambition mask the whispers of forbidden desire? Did law bend quietly while secrets festered behind oak doors, perfumed and perfidious? Shadows flickered under torchlight. Ledgers clacked, names recorded, favors implied. Footsteps echoed in corridors that smelled of sweat and ink. A summons rustled, velvet folds hiding unspeakable intent. Could those in authority truly escape scrutiny, or were they trapped in their own webs of lust? Now, comment on the name of your lovely country where you are watching this video if you truly love your country. The air thickens, the room waits. The story of desire, power, and scandal begins. Oak doors groaned under the weight of secrets. Wax seals gleamed in torchlight. Whispers slid through hallways. Could a man of law crave what was forbidden? Rumors traced every corridor. Ledger entries hinted at favors beyond duty. Eyes watched, pens recorded, hearts pounded. And somewhere a summons awaited with unspoken peril. The chamber was small, perfumed with candle smoke and faint ink. Oliver Cromwell entered, boots echoing on cold stone. A velvet envelope sat on the desk, stamped with a ring's imprint. Orders read aloud, positions assigned, time meticulously counted. He was no stranger to command, yet tonight felt different. The clerk's hands trembled as they passed the summons. Oak doors shut behind him, latch clicking. Outside, muffled music tried to mask the room's tense rhythm. The servant whispered, "My lord, they wait." Cromwell's eyes scanned the chamber. Shadows danced across tapestries, flickering like silent witnesses. A faint smell of perfume lingered, its origin unknown but unnerving. The ledger on the desk had been updated that morning, every name checked, every favor noted. Something in the pattern of ink and stamp unsettled him. Could loyalty and desire truly coexist in these walls? The faint echo of footsteps reminded him he was never alone. His pulse quickened. A decision loomed. Behind the oak doors, consequences waited, silent and patient, ready to pounce. Cromwell moved toward the ledger, tracing names with a finger, each line more telling than the last. Clerks whispered from corners, careful to keep their voices low. "He favors the young," one muttered, a shiver in his tone. In the hall, rumors spread like wildfire. Journal entries hinted at counsel turned to something else. Candlelight flickered over faint stains on parchments. A servant's footstep faltered, a cloth dropped. Each sound magnified the tension. Outside, the city slept unaware, while inside, the weight of power twisted into darker curiosities. The ledger revealed patterns, dates, times meticulously recorded, favoritism blurred with indulgence. A handkerchief pressed into a page, perfumed, faintly blood-stained, hinted at the consequence of one night's encounter. Cromwell's mind raced. If these records surfaced, reputations would shatter. Whispers became voices in the dark, echoing allegations that seemed too precise to be coincidence. Evidence of coercion lingered like smoke. Each witness, each note, each smell heightened the unease. Could one ledger truly betray what remained hidden behind doors, sealed and locked? The answers would emerge, slowly, painfully, leaving no escape from the inevitability of exposure. A packet slipped under the door. The contents would change everything. The packet lay on the cold stone floor. Inside, a folded note, inked in haste. "This is the price of your progress," it read, bearing initials that made Cromwell's stomach tighten. A pressed flower fell from between pages, a subtle reminder of nights remembered and recorded. The room seemed smaller, suffocating. Torchlight reflected off the ring seal, magnifying its ominous intent. Documents, carefully placed, hinted at encounters meticulously timed, names checked, favors stamped. A ledger entry noted a minor intervention, the meaning implicit, chilling. Even seasoned courtiers would feel the weight. Cromwell's breath caught. The packet's arrival meant someone knew, had proof, or at least wanted him to believe it. Rumors no longer whispered, they shouted in the confines of the chamber. The perfumed scent intensified, mingling with the faint copper tang of ink and possibly blood. His hands, though steady, betrayed a tremor. If the wrong eyes saw these papers, his career, influence, and hidden indulgences could unravel in a heartbeat. Every measured step toward the evidence risked exposure. Every shadow seemed to watch. The note hinted at more than scandal. It pointed to betrayal within his closest circle. The following morning, the hallways buzzed differently. Cromwell moved as if every whisper followed him. Ledger entries were double-checked, seals pressed again, torches relit. The packet had been removed overnight. Its absence only deepened suspicion. Clerks avoided his gaze. Servants whispered in corners. Even the tapestries seemed to conceal observing eyes. The law and desire, once parallel, now collided violently in silent chambers. Publicly, Cromwell maintained composure, a steadfast commander of a nation at war. Privately, the evidence lingered, a shadow impossible to ignore. Lesson: even the most meticulous records can betray private desires. Power seduces, authority masks indulgence, and a single misplaced packet can shift perception irreversibly. Rumors became reality when corroborated by tangible proof. The interplay of trust, secrecy, and exposure defined the era's dangerous equilibrium. The oak doors, once protective, now seemed imprisoning. Cromwell's understanding of loyalty deepened painfully. A leader's control extended only so far before human frailty undermined it. The weight of observation, written and whispered, pressed like stone on his conscience. And yet, outwardly, he commanded respect, hiding the tumult beneath disciplined calm.
Could one slip, one note, one witness destroy a man's reputation overnight? The corridors held their secrets tight. Shadows waited, and Cromwell, powerful yet vulnerable, realized that even authority bowed to the darker desires of men. Tomorrow would reveal who remained loyal and who had already betrayed. A shadow moved silently along the corridor. Paper rustled beneath cautious hands. Candles flickered, casting doubts on every corner. A secret meeting awaited. Eyes unseen, ears alert. Whispers of treachery and ambition collided. In the heart of the manor, alliances teetered. One misstep could ignite chaos, and someone, always someone, was watching. In the manor's northern wing, walls lined with faded tapestries, a letter arrived under the door. Its wax seal cracked, hinting at urgency. Thomas Larkin, Cromwell's trusted aide, picked it up, fingers brushing faint traces of perfume. He recognized the handwriting, deliberate, hurried. The content was unnerving. Instructions to attend a clandestine gathering, hints of a conspiracy, names shaded with suspicion. The servants' footsteps echoed too loudly, betraying their nervousness. Every lock on the oak doors seemed fragile. Even the familiar warmth of candlelight failed to soothe the tension. Thomas's heart thudded in rhythm with the distant clock. Outside, the city murmured of ordinary life, unaware of the labyrinth of secrets within. Courtiers whispered in hallways, rumors tracing unseen pathways. The letter suggested alliances shifting, loyalties tested, and rewards promised for silence or betrayal. A minor miscalculation could expose decades of hidden maneuvering. Thomas clenched the envelope tighter. The scent of ink, perfume, and a faint metallic tang mingled in the air, a silent reminder of consequences. Each servant's glance felt loaded, each shadow menacing. The night's agenda demanded precision, cunning, and unwavering attention, or everything could collapse with the wrong move. A single encounter tonight would decide who wielded influence and who faced ruin. Thomas followed the corridor toward the chamber specified in the letter. Tapestries whispered as he passed, the faint scratch of fabric against stone echoing ominously. A servant appeared, eyes darting, offering a lantern. Its flame trembled as if aware of the secrets it illuminated. Names were whispered under breath: Fitzgerald, Alden, Marwood. Each name represented power, loyalty, and potential betrayal. Thomas remembered ledger entries from the previous night, noting every intervention, favor, and indiscretion. Now, each whispered name connected to an unseen web, threads pulling taut under the weight of ambition. The chamber door loomed ahead, slightly ajar. Inside, shadows shifted, figures emerging from darkness. Documents lay scattered, candles burned low. One parchment listed schedules, another detailed interactions, each meticulously recorded. Perfumed items hinted at indulgences beyond duty. Thomas's pulse quickened. The room held more than secrets. It contained proof, leverage, and danger. Courtiers' eyes gleamed with intent, some nervous, others calculating. Every breath he drew seemed audible, every footstep magnified. Outside, silence prevailed, but inside, power danced on the edge of revelation. One wrong gesture, one word spoken carelessly, could ignite conflict. The figure's face emerged from shadow. Lady Marwood, sharp eyes glinting, lips pressed in a thin line. In her hands, a folded packet, slightly damp from a night's dew, faintly scented with rose and smoke. "You've been keeping secrets," she said, voice soft yet commanding. Thomas's fingers tingled. The packet contained letters, ledger entries, and a pressed handkerchief, evidence of indulgences, manipulations, and unspoken alliances. Candlelight reflected off a seal, magnifying the threat. Each document detailed encounters, favors granted, and subtle coercions, painting a picture of power intertwined with desire. Thomas realized the web extended further than imagined. Courtiers present shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flicking between Lady Marwood and Thomas. Every whisper, every careful action of the past months was catalogued, now poised for exposure. The scent of ink, perfume, and faint blood lingered. One page revealed a meeting Thomas hadn't anticipated, an intersection of loyalty and betrayal. Lady Marwood's gaze held him in place, calculating, unwavering. The packet's contents could ruin careers, reputations, and lives overnight. Even Cromwell's judgment might falter under such revelations. Lady Marwood's next words promised consequences Thomas had yet to imagine, and a challenge only he could confront. By dawn, the chamber was empty, save for scattered papers, the lingering scent of rose and ink. Thomas Larkin emerged, heart pounding, mind racing. The meeting had revealed truths he could neither ignore nor disclose. Loyalty and ambition collided in quiet corridors, and whispers had become the pulse of power. Every ledger, letter, and note became a tool, proof of indulgence, manipulation, or allegiance. Knowledge was weaponized, secrecy a currency. Thomas realized that navigating these waters required more than obedience. It demanded subtlety, foresight, and courage.
Courtiers avoided direct eye contact, yet their intent lingered in every glance, every muted conversation. Even the servants' quiet movements spoke of tension, anticipation, and silent judgment. Thomas understood that power's veneer was fragile. Perception could shift with a single revelation. His awareness of observation, documentation, and strategic silence deepened. The events of the night would echo through hallways, chambers, and council meetings, a reminder that influence could be wielded and manipulated from shadows. Lessons emerged clearly. The careful record of actions, favors, and indiscretions could either protect or betray. Silence was as dangerous as disclosure, trust as precarious as ambition. Tomorrow's challenges would test resolve, loyalty, and the delicate balance between secrecy and exposure. In corridors filled with shadows, Thomas understood every whisper, every ledger entry, every glance carried consequence. Secrets demanded vigilance. Power tempted betrayal. And as dawn broke over stone walls, he knew the true struggle had only just begun. One night, one decision could change the course of all their fates. Moonlight slipped through the narrow windows, casting silver streaks over the chamber floor. A figure stepped forward, voice calm yet chilling, signaling the beginning of a test Thomas could not ignore. A hidden drawer creaked open, revealing another layer of secrets. Thomas froze, sensing movement beyond sight. Someone was observing, unseen yet omnipresent. Tonight, hidden agendas collided. A single misstep could ignite a chain reaction, exposing more than just whispered conspiracies. Thomas Larkin stepped into the smaller study adjoining the northern chamber. The room smelled of wax, leather, and old parchment, a faint chill settling in. On a polished oak desk lay an envelope sealed with crimson wax. The mark was unfamiliar, yet precise, deliberate. Thomas's hands trembled as he picked it up. Within were sketches, notes, and coded entries hinting at clandestine alliances, secret transactions, and whispers of betrayal. The familiar faces of courtiers Alden, Fitzgerald, and several others were entwined in a web of ambition and danger. Each diagram traced movements, meetings, and decisions, connecting seemingly isolated events into a single delicate tapestry. Thomas realized the night's revelations were not an isolated threat, but part of a larger strategy designed to test loyalty and influence outcomes. The flickering candlelight reflected on the polished desk, illuminating faint stains, signatures, and symbols that only those attuned to the court's subtleties would notice. Thomas's mind raced. One wrong interpretation could unravel the carefully orchestrated balance of power. The weight of knowledge pressed upon him. Even a whisper could set dominoes into motion, toppling careers, reputations, and carefully cultivated allegiances. Outside, the quiet streets masked the storm of schemes brewing within these walls. The envelope held the first piece of a puzzle that Thomas had yet to understand, yet it promised consequences he could not ignore. As Thomas scrutinized the documents, a low creak signaled someone entering. Lady Marwood appeared, cloak brushing the floor, eyes sharp and assessing. She leaned close, voice calm. "These are not mere notes, Thomas. They are evidence of intentions, vulnerabilities, and ambitions, and not all are loyal." Her gaze swept the room, noting the scattered sketches, ledger entries, and perfumed trinkets, each telling a story of desire, manipulation, or compromise. Thomas followed the faint markings, realizing they represented meetings scheduled at midnight, secret exchanges of information, and subtle coercions that could tip balances of influence. Each courted alliance was fragile, maintained only by unspoken rules and fear of exposure. The risk of being caught with these materials, in possession of any inkling of what they revealed, was catastrophic. Outside the windows, the wind whispered through the eaves,
carrying the faintest hints of conversations in distant chambers. The manor's walls had ears, Thomas thought, and the shadow of observation pressed closer. Candlelight flickered as he mapped out the connections. Each line, each annotation was more than information, it was leverage. Marwood's hand brushed a ledger, indicating a carefully hidden signature. The room felt smaller, suffocating, yet alive with imminent danger. Someone beyond the chamber's door held the power to exploit what they were just beginning to see. Lady Marwood unfolded a folded parchment, revealing a set of letters bound with thread. The writing was unmistakable, deliberate, elegant, yet urgent. Each letter chronicled favors, bribes, and subtle coercions designed to manipulate decisions at court. Thomas's eyes widened as he traced the entries. Meetings in hidden chambers, coded messages slipped into courtiers' pockets, promises of influence for silence. The letters implicated figures once thought untouchable. A faint metallic smell hung in the air, subtle but undeniable, mixing with the scent of wax and ink, a silent reminder of danger. One letter contained threat veiled as counsel, another an admission of guilt for actions never witnessed. Thomas felt the weight of responsibility press upon him. A single revelation could ignite scandal, ruin reputations, and destabilize carefully maintained power structures. Lady Marwood's gaze was unwavering, assessing his reaction. "Do you understand?" she asked. "These letters are proof of ambitions cloaked in propriety, of loyalties tested, of consequences waiting." The parchment seemed heavier than its weight in paper, a tangible manifestation of the stakes involved. Outside, footsteps echoed faintly. Thomas realized he was no longer alone. Observers were close, unseen, calculating every reaction. The letters revealed that tonight's events were merely a prelude, a test in a much larger game where any misstep could prove fatal. By the first light of dawn, Thomas carefully replaced the letters and sketches, their secrets safely concealed once more. The manor was waking, unaware of the night's revelations. Yet Thomas knew nothing would remain unchanged. Knowledge had shifted power subtly, altering alliances and priorities. Courtiers' loyalties could no longer be assumed, and the faintest gesture could betray intentions. Thomas's understanding of the court's intricate balance deepened. Every whisper, glance, and ledger entry was a potential tool or weapon. Even Lady Marwood's intentions remained partially obscured, her strategies layered and deliberate. The air seemed charged with possibilities, each decision capable of cascading consequences. Thomas knew he must move carefully, using observation, patience, and strategic discretion to navigate the complex web of influence. The documents were not just evidence, they were instruments of power, capable of reshaping outcomes quietly but irrevocably. Outside, the city stirred, oblivious to the night's intricate maneuvers. The lesson was clear. Vigilance and foresight were paramount, secrecy and subtlety essential. Thomas left the study with a measured pace, heart steady but mind alert, understanding that the game had only deepened, the stakes grown higher, and the players' moves increasingly unpredictable. Every ledger entry, every whispered intention, every carefully hidden letter carried the weight of potential ruin. Thomas understood. Tonight had been a rehearsal, a test. The real revelations were yet to come, and the next encounter would demand courage, cunning, and the ability to outmaneuver shadows lurking within the very walls he called safe. Thunder rumbled in the distance, echoing the storm brewing inside the manor. Thomas felt the weight of eyes upon him, invisible but relentless. Secrets whispered from hidden corners, conspiracies ready to ignite. Tonight, knowledge alone would not suffice. Actions were required. Every choice could provoke a reckoning far beyond expectation. Thomas's careful steps through the dimly lit corridor were punctuated by the distant echo of footsteps that were not his own. Something or someone was watching, measuring, predicting. The manor's ornate walls, familiar and once comforting, now seemed oppressive, lined with shadowed observers.
Reaching the northern gallery, he discovered a small envelope tucked beneath a carved gargoyle. Its seal, unfamiliar, bore the faintest impression of a lion. Pride, authority, and subtle menace all in one mark. Opening it, Thomas found a message scrawled in delicate, urgent script. The game is no longer observation. Decisions will be forced. Choices made without foresight will exact a toll you cannot afford. A folded map accompanied the note, marking rooms, corridors, and hidden passages. The markings revealed a network of movement within the manor previously invisible, paths used to spy, intercept, or trap. Thomas realized the night's intrigue had escalated. The conspirators were not merely planning in shadows, they were orchestrating active maneuvers, positioning players, anticipating reactions. Each corridor could conceal an ally or an enemy. The walls were no longer silent witnesses, they were instruments of influence, waiting to be manipulated by those who knew their secrets. Someone had anticipated Thomas's every move, and the next revelation would force him into the open. Following the map's guidance, Thomas arrived at a concealed chamber behind the grand library. The door, almost invisible, slid open to reveal a room bathed in flickering candlelight. Charts, ledgers, and personal effects littered the floor, a mosaic of human intent and manipulation. Thomas's eyes caught a desk drawer slightly ajar. Inside, a small chest contained correspondences, each sealed with symbols that, once deciphered, spoke of clandestine meetings and strategic deception. He carefully unfolded a letter signed by Alden, a trusted advisor. The contents were damning. Alden had secretly negotiated alliances with rival factions, offering influence in exchange for silence regarding certain illicit affairs. The revelation was shocking, yet not entirely expected. Thomas realized that loyalty was a veneer, carefully maintained by appearances and fear. Each letter, each signature, each carefully drafted message was a thread in an intricate web of influence, weaving together ambition, blackmail, and opportunity. The room exuded an oppressive intensity, heavy with secrets waiting to be exposed. Thomas understood that to survive, he would need more than observation. He would need strategy, foresight, and the ability to anticipate the moves of players who were as cunning as they were ruthless. The hidden correspondences suggested that a confrontation was imminent, one that could reveal true intentions to all. A sudden noise, a metallic scrape against stone, made Thomas freeze. The shadows shifted, forming a figure partially concealed in the corner. Lady Marwood emerged first, her cloak flowing, eyes sharp and unyielding. Behind her, a second silhouette revealed itself, Alden, the traitorous advisor. Their simultaneous appearance was deliberate, coordinated, signaling the beginning of the confrontation Thomas had anticipated, yet dreaded. "You've seen too much," Marwood said, voice calm but edged with authority. Alden's lips curled in a faint, sinister smile. "Knowledge is power, but it can also be a trap." The chamber seemed to constrict as tension thickened the air. Thomas's mind raced. He needed a strategy to survive, to turn observation into action. Every gesture, every word now carried weight, capable of igniting conflict or averting disaster. Marwood's gaze shifted between Thomas and Alden, silently measuring loyalties, assessing risks, calculating advantage. The candlelight danced across faces, highlighting determination, fear, and ambition. Thomas realized the confrontation was not just a matter of discovery, it was a test of intellect, composure, and influence. Each player understood that a single misstep could expose weakness, ruin alliances, or provoke immediate retaliation. Hidden alliances had emerged, revealing that the battle was not just personal, but systemic. A subtle sound came from the shadows, a movement too careful to be casual. A figure stepped forward, emerging from the darkness. A young aide named Lucien, previously assumed loyal to Alden, now revealing allegiance to Thomas. "You need to see this," Lucian whispered, sliding a set of miniature maps across the desk. Each map detailed the manor's inner mechanisms, trapdoors, secret passages, and vantage points previously unknown. The aide's appearance shifted the power dynamic instantly. Thomas recognized that Lucian's betrayal of Alden was strategic, well-timed, and potentially decisive. Marwood's eyes narrowed, perceiving the new variable with caution. Alden's fingers tightened on a cane, a faint tremor betraying irritation, perhaps even fear. Thomas studied the maps, seeing a path that could isolate Alden from any support, while simultaneously providing leverage to negotiate with Marwood. Knowledge, he realized, was becoming weaponized, and every alliance, hidden or overt, could tip the confrontation in unpredictable directions. He had to act quickly, yet carefully, calculating the psychological reactions of all involved. One misstep could trigger an immediate counterattack or betray additional secrets, unraveling the fragile balance that had just shifted. Thomas understood that his decisions in the next moments would dictate who controlled the narrative and who would fall victim to it. A hidden ally had revealed a secret advantage, intensifying the confrontation and opening possibilities for unexpected outcomes. The chamber seemed to shrink as tensions multiplied. Alden leaned forward, voice low but controlled. "You think alliances can save you? Every connection you claim will be tested." Marwood's expression remained unreadable, yet her posture shifted subtly, signaling caution and preparedness. Thomas analyzed the psychological landscape, fear, ambition, and strategic calculation interwoven in every glance, every inflection. He chose his words carefully. The truth has weight, and weight cannot be ignored. His calm defiance drew attention, but it also forced Alden and Marwood to reevaluate their assumptions about his capacity for control. The young aide, Lucian, positioned discreetly behind Thomas, provided subtle signals of movement, silently coordinating potential interventions or diversions. Candles flickered, shadows dancing across walls heavy with secrets. Each movement, stretching a hand for a document, adjusting a stance, or simply inhaling, became part of the silent negotiation. Thomas knew that the confrontation was no longer a simple exchange of accusations or revelations. It was now a multi-layered battle of psychology, strategy, and foresight. Every misstep could trigger a cascade of exposure, betrayal, or outright violence. The interplay of power was at its peak, and Thomas understood that the next revelation would shift everything permanently.
The confrontation was not simply a simple revelation, it was the first move in a larger, deadly game of strategy and manipulation. Thomas slowly moved closer to the desk, masking intent while keeping Marwood and Alden in his peripheral vision. The letters and maps remained between them, silent witnesses to treachery and ambition. Thomas's mind cataloged every detail, the placement of the candles, the slight tremor in Alden's hand, the calculated poise of Marwood's posture. The chamber became a chessboard, each individual a piece capable of decisive action. Thomas understood that the next moments would determine the balance of power. He needed leverage, something tangible, undeniable, that could shift the confrontation in his favor. Recalling the maps and hidden passages, he discerned a pattern. One route could isolate Alden, another could alert unseen allies, while a third might allow an escape should the confrontation spiral out of control. Every possibility carried risk, yet each contained opportunity. The storm outside intensified, thunder echoing through the manor as if nature itself were complicit in the escalating tension. Shadows lengthened and contracted with the candlelight, mirroring uncertainty, duplicity, and latent threat. Thomas knew that success would require a delicate balance of intelligence, timing, and psychological insight. Any misjudgment could provoke betrayal, spark violence, or reveal secrets too perilous to control.
Thomas prepared to act, knowing that the choices made in the next moments would define the course of events and perhaps their very survival. Alden shifted, the faintest smirk playing on his lips. Marwood's eyes sharpened. Thomas's breath slowed, mind calculating. The room pulsed with unseen tension, each heartbeat a countdown to revelation. Tonight, decisions would be made, alliances tested, and truths unveiled. The first move had been set. Now the game was fully in motion. Lightning struck the manor, casting fractured shadows across the chamber. Thomas felt the air thicken with anticipation, the unspoken danger pressing against every nerve. Alliances would be tested, betrayals unveiled, and every hidden agenda risk exposure. Tonight, strategy alone could determine who survived and who became collateral in a game far bigger than imagined. Marwood's eyes flicked to a small portrait on the wall, an innocuous depiction of ancestors, or so it seemed. She reached out, pressing a hidden latch behind the frame. A panel slid open, revealing a secret compartment lined with documents and small objects, each indicating alliances that Thomas had never suspected. "You're not the only one with knowledge," she said, voice measured yet sharp, eyes fixed on Thomas. Alden's gaze sharpened, a subtle acknowledgement of the threat now present. Thomas realized that the confrontation was already escalating beyond words. The room itself had become an active participant, concealing evidence, offering leverage, and allowing rapid strategic maneuvers. Marwood withdrew a folder, laying it on the desk between them. Letters, coded notes, and agreements, signed in secrecy by influential figures, painted a broader picture of manipulation, deception, and opportunistic loyalty. Thomas's pulse quickened. The manor was not merely the stage of individual rivalry, but a nexus of power, plotting, and hidden influence. Each revelation altered the balance of the confrontation, forcing Thomas to reconsider every assumption he had made about friend, foe, and the limits of knowledge. Thunder cracked, echoing the shattering of assumptions. Thomas moved deliberately toward the center of the room, holding the envelope Marwood had provided, its contents a catalyst for upheaval. "Alden," he began, voice steady yet cutting, "your network extends further than you ever imagined, but your own contingency plan has betrayed you." Marwood's eyes widened slightly, recognizing the weight of Thomas's words. Lucien's maps and the documents now combined painted a horrifying reality. Alden's carefully orchestrated empire of influence had an Achilles heel embedded within the very plans he considered infallible. Thomas revealed the final piece, a hidden ledger detailing Alden's secret agreements with individuals he believed loyal, all now compromised. The revelation struck Alden like a physical blow. His posture stiffened, face blanching, eyes darting between Thomas and Marwood. He had anticipated threats, but never this, a convergence of hidden knowledge, strategic foresight, and betrayal that dismantled his sense of control. The shocking twist reshaped the entire power dynamic. Thomas, previously on the defensive, now held the upper hand. The room seemed to shrink further as each participant recognized the magnitude of the revelation, the precariousness of loyalty, and the inevitability of confrontation. Alden's empire of influence crumbled before his eyes, and Thomas seized the first opportunity to exploit the chaos. Alden's voice cracked, defiance interwoven with desperation. "You have no idea what you're meddling with. I control more than you can perceive." Thomas's calm response was sharper than any weapon. "Control is an illusion when knowledge shifts beneath your feet." Lucien subtly guided Thomas toward vantage points in the chamber, providing opportunities for psychological leverage and tactical advantage. Marwood, recognizing Thomas's ascent, positioned herself strategically, silently signaling that her cooperation was conditional but powerful. The chamber's atmosphere grew electric. Each glance, each gesture, each subtle movement became a maneuver in the ongoing battle of strategy and perception. Thomas engaged Alden directly, dissecting his statements and exposing contradictions, creating cracks in his authority that widened with every revelation. The young aide's maps allowed Thomas to anticipate Alden's next steps, countering every potential move before it materialized. Shadows flickered across walls lined with ancestral portraits, highlighting the physical and metaphorical weight of history pressing upon the present confrontation. Every player understood that the next moments would determine survival, control, and the redistribution of power. The peak of conflict was not marked by violence, but by the full exposure of hidden strengths, vulnerabilities, and the fragility of assumed dominance.
The confrontation had reached its peak, with every move a gamble and every secret a potential weapon. Thomas's revelation prompted further exposure. Alden's trusted confidants, previously assumed loyal, faltered under scrutiny. Whispers echoed through the chamber, each revelation revealing a chain of betrayal previously hidden in plain sight. "You see," Thomas said, holding up a folded letter, "those you relied on most were already aligned against you." Marwood observed silently, her eyes calculating, ready to adjust her allegiance as the dynamic shifted. Alden's fury was palpable. His strategies, once meticulously designed, unraveled with terrifying rapidity. Lucian, standing discreetly behind Thomas, provided crucial insight, interpreting Alden's subtle cues to predict his next attempt at manipulation. Documents, maps, and secret agreements converged, creating a lattice of exposure that left no room for concealment. The interplay of deception, ambition, and strategic foresight now defined every action. Alden's alliances dissolved not through force, but through revelation, as hidden loyalties surfaced and obligations shifted in real time. Thomas realized that control had shifted irrevocably, yet he knew caution remained essential. Overconfidence could allow Alden a final, desperate counterattack. Every betrayal had purpose, every revelation a consequence, and every movement a ripple through the fragile ecosystem of power. Alden's network was collapsing, and hidden betrayals transformed the confrontation into a complex battle of intellect, leverage, and perception. With Alden's authority fractured, Thomas stepped closer, projecting calm dominance. "You underestimated the value of transparency," he said, voice low and deliberate. Marwood's nod confirmed alignment without words. Lucian's subtle hand signals coordinated anticipated moves. Thomas leveraged Alden's fear, hesitation, and need for control against him, orchestrating a psychological labyrinth where every potential choice forced him into disadvantage. Alden attempted to regain composure, shifting weight, adjusting posture, and trying to mask panic, but Thomas anticipated each maneuver. Candles flickered, shadows dancing across the room's ornate architecture, amplifying tension. Thomas's words were surgical, each carefully chosen phrase peeling back layers of deceit and forcing confessions. The documents, maps, and letters provided the foundation, but it was Thomas's understanding of human behavior that transformed raw evidence into a strategic advantage. Alden's attempts to dominate the narrative faltered. The psychological leverage now rested entirely with Thomas, dictating tempo, perception, and pressure. Marwood observed, aware that her own influence had multiplied in this realignment. The chamber was no longer just a room, it was a crucible of intellect, manipulation, and emerging dominance. Psychological control had shifted. Alden was now responding to Thomas's orchestration, not his own agenda. The storm outside mirrored the storm within the chamber. Lightning illuminated tense faces, shaking walls, and subtle expressions that betrayed hidden intentions. Thomas analyzed every angle: Marwood's cautious support, Lucian's strategic guidance, and Alden's fragile resistance. Every action now mattered. The climax approached like a tide ready to surge. Thomas positioned himself centrally, the envelope still in hand, symbolic of both evidence and control. He considered timing, psychological pressure, and the interplay of revealed secrets. Each second allowed him to manipulate perception, anticipate countermeasures, and consolidate advantage. The room itself, with its hidden passages and historical architecture, provided spatial leverage, allowing Thomas to isolate, observe, and strategically confront Alden. As Alden's desperation became evident, Thomas prepared to deliver the decisive revelation that would finalize the confrontation, reshape alliances, and ensure survival. Every element, timing,
perception, evidence, and human psychology was orchestrated to perfection. The next move would determine the hierarchy of power and the consequences of revealed truths. The stage was fully set, the climax awaited, and every character braced for irreversible outcomes.
The confrontation had become a battlefield of intellect and strategy, with hidden advantages and unseen allies altering the balance of power. Marwood placed a sealed envelope on the desk, deliberately sliding it toward Thomas. "Inside is proof of Alden's deeper schemes," she stated, voice unwavering. Thomas's fingers trembled slightly as he opened it, revealing correspondences between Alden and figures of influence beyond the manor, letters that exposed bribery, secret favors, and manipulations extending far past their immediate conflict. Each word confirmed suspicions, but the depth of betrayal stunned him. Alden's network had been shaping events across cities, controlling outcomes, and silencing opposition with precision. Lucien's maps complemented the letters, revealing that Alden had established contingency routes for escape, negotiation, or leverage, anticipating exposure long before Thomas had uncovered evidence. The room's atmosphere shifted. Marwood's composure suggested approval, Alden's subtle tremor indicated frustration and growing panic, and Thomas recognized that the next steps must be decisive. Time was now a weapon, each second an opportunity or risk. The revelation of Alden's broader machinations amplified the stakes. This confrontation was no longer just about individual survival. It was about navigating a network of manipulation capable of influencing power far beyond the manor. With the depth of Alden's treachery revealed, Thomas prepared to use the information to seize control of the unfolding drama, but the consequences remained unpredictable. Thomas shifted, examining every detail, recalculating his strategy in real time. Lucien's presence was a key asset. Marwood's cautious allegiance provided potential leverage, and Alden's hidden panic offered exploitable weaknesses. The manor's architecture, once merely decorative, now became a tactical tool, with corridors, hidden compartments, and vantage points mapped for potential advantage. Thomas's mind raced: how to expose Alden, secure Marwood's cooperation, and maintain leverage over the unknown elements still at play. He realized that the next move required precision, foresight, and calculated risk. Any visible hesitation could provoke immediate retaliation. Any overt aggression could undermine potential alliances. Thunder rumbled again, punctuating the storm of decisions swirling within the chamber. Thomas's intuition told him that the shocking twist was imminent, something neither Alden nor Marwood could anticipate. Every player's strategy was transparent in subtle cues, yet the true impact of hidden knowledge had not yet revealed itself. The next revelation would force choices with irreversible consequences, shifting the power balance decisively. He knew that his survival, influence, and control depended on exploiting timing, perception, and psychological acuity. The storm outside mirrored the storm within, as Thomas prepared to turn observation into decisive action. The stage was set, the shocking twist waited to be revealed, and every action would determine the hierarchy of power. Lightning illuminated Alden's clenched fists, Marwood's poised gaze, and Thomas's calculated calm. The chamber vibrated with tension, secrets, and unspoken threats. Alliances had shifted, hidden strengths emerged, and the next revelation promised upheaval. Every move now mattered, and the shocking twist about to unfold would redefine loyalty, strategy, and survival in this deadly game. The storm outside raged violently, but inside the manor, the storm of human ambition, betrayal, and revelation reached its zenith. Thomas sensed the moment approaching, the shocking twist that would rip through every hidden alliance, expose every secret, and force each player to confront consequences they had long believed were avoidable. Lightning struck the matter, shadows stretching across tense faces. Thomas stood poised, control in hand, as Alden faltered under the weight of exposed secrets. Marwood's subtle smile hinted at newfound power, and Lucien's steady presence confirmed the alliance.
The shocking twist had been revealed, and the final confrontation loomed. Decisions made now would be irrevocable. The manor trembled under the storm's fury, but inside, the real tempest had nothing to do with thunder. Thomas, poised and unyielding, faced Alden with all alliances laid bare, all secrets exposed. Every glance, every word, every decision would determine who survived this night and who would rise from its wreckage. Alden's fury erupted in a controlled storm, his voice slicing through the tension. "You think this ends here? You cannot comprehend the reach of my influence." Thomas met him calmly, eyes unblinking, hands steady on the documents that had already shifted the balance irreversibly. The room felt like a chessboard of human ambition, every movement measured, every gesture deliberate. Marwood positioned herself strategically, signaling support without overt intervention, while Lucien's presence guided Thomas's decisions, allowing subtle psychological leverage to dominate the space. Alden lunged, attempting both verbal and physical intimidation, but each action played into Thomas's plan. The documents, the hidden ledger, secret agreements, and letters of betrayal were now more than proof. They were instruments of control. With each revelation Thomas read aloud, Alden's authority crumbled, allies hesitated, and the room's energy shifted toward Thomas's command. Every counterattack Alden attempted was anticipated, redirected, and neutralized with precision. The final confrontation was not marked by violence alone, but by the orchestration of truth, perception, and intellect. Shadows flickered across walls adorned with historical portraits, highlighting both historical weight and the personal stakes of the present. Alden's influence was fractured completely, and Thomas's strategy reached its zenith. Thomas turned to Marwood and Lucien, acknowledging their role in the unfolding climax. Every allegiance, every loyalty, every hidden agenda revealed, he said, voice steady and commanding. The chamber now resembled a theater of human strategy. Whispers of betrayal filled the air. Alden's confidants faltered visibly, their eyes darting between Thomas, Marwood, and Lucien. Each secret previously concealed was now illuminated, partnerships undermined, debts unfulfilled, promises broken. Thomas leveraged these revelations like pieces on a board, isolating Alden and demonstrating that power without transparency was a fragile illusion. Marwood's careful positioning allowed her influence to multiply. She remained an unpredictable variable that added weight to Thomas's orchestration. Lucien's analytical insight ensured that every reaction Alden attempted was anticipated and countered. The hidden alliances, once thought to fortify Alden's empire, now accelerated its collapse. Every subtle gesture, every moment of hesitation, every faltering word amplified the psychological impact. Alden's attempts to regain dominance became increasingly desperate, but the lattice of exposed relationships held him firmly in place. Thomas's control of perception, leverage, and timing ensured that victory required no brute force, only the mastery of knowledge, foresight, and human psychology. With hidden alliances exposed, Alden's final defenses crumbled under relentless strategic precision.
Thomas approached Alden directly, documents in hand, eyes locking with a mixture of resolve and warning. "The truth you buried so deeply," he said, voice low and deliberate, "now governs your fate." The envelope contained final, irrefutable evidence, proof of betrayal, corruption, and manipulation that Alden could no longer deny or evade. Each letter, each ledger entry, each map pointed to the magnitude of his miscalculations. Alden's face, previously a mask of arrogance, now betrayed panic and incredulity. He attempted feeble denials, but every word Thomas spoke reinforced the inexorability of exposure. The final revelation was more than strategic. It was moral, ethical, and personal. It forced every participant to recognize the full spectrum of consequences: systemic deception, personal ambition, and the fragility of assumed control. The storm outside mirrored the internal collapse of authority, each lightning strike echoing the impact of unveiled truths. Marwood's subtle smile and Lucian's silent nod underscored the inevitability of the outcome. Thomas had navigated the treacherous waters of hidden agendas and emerged with unassailable control. Alden's network, carefully constructed over years, disintegrated not through aggression, but through the revelation of carefully concealed truths. The shocking truth left Alden powerless, his empire of influence irreversibly dismantled. With Alden's downfall complete, Thomas began orchestrating the resolution. Marwood, recognizing the shift in power, aligned decisively, her influence now magnified by Thomas's strategic success. Lucian continued his guidance, ensuring that remaining allegiances stabilized under new leadership. The chamber, once a battleground of human ambition and psychological warfare, transformed into a space of redistribution and recalibration. Power flowed to those who had anticipated, adapted, and leveraged the revelations effectively. Thomas, central and unshaken, mediated the balance between justice, strategy, and opportunity. Alden, now reduced to reactive desperation, realized the futility of resistance. Formerly hidden collaborators either stepped forward with renewed loyalty or receded quietly, acknowledging the inevitability of Thomas's dominance. The culmination of strategy, knowledge, and psychological insight reshaped every hierarchy in the room. Shadows from candlelight danced across the chamber walls, echoing the cycles of influence, ambition, and consequence. Thomas's meticulous orchestration ensured that victory was not merely personal triumph, it was systemic, recalibrating the relationships, power dynamics, and strategies of all involved. Every gesture, glance, and document had contributed to this realignment. Control had shifted irreversibly, alliances had been redefined, and Thomas stood as the architect of a new order. The storm outside gradually subsided, leaving a tense calm that mirrored the chamber within. Thomas surveyed the aftermath, Alden seated, defeated but alive, Marwood confident yet cautious, Lucian vigilant and analytical. Each player bore the consequences of decisions, alliances, and revealed truths. Conversations began, careful, deliberate, and laden with strategic calculation. Thomas reflected silently, understanding that every choice carried weight, and every revelation had reshaped not only the immediate situation, but the long-term trajectory of power, loyalty, and influence. Lessons were evident. Transparency, foresight, and strategic leverage were the true currency of authority. Alden, once a towering figure of control, now existed within the confines of consequence, forced to navigate a world recalibrated by his miscalculations. Marwood's subtle repositioning secured her influence, Lucian's guidance reinforced Thomas's command, and Thomas himself remained poised, aware that the delicate equilibrium of power required ongoing vigilance. The final fallout demonstrated that mastery over information, alliances, and human psychology outweighed brute strength or unchecked ambition. In this carefully orchestrated conclusion, every secret unveiled, every betrayal exposed, and every strategic maneuver coalesced into a definitive resolution. The night's revelations ensured that the landscape of power, loyalty, and influence had permanently changed. Lightning no longer threatened the manor, but the echoes of revelation lingered. Thomas stood amid the aftermath, a silent sentinel of strategy and foresight. Alden's fall, Marwood's rise, and Lucian's wisdom marked the definitive reshaping of control. The storm had passed, but the consequences and lessons would endure indefinitely.